usually we cover like a topic that's game audio focused, but this past week we finally showed off a demo that we've been working on. It's not for a game, but it's for a system that we're hoping will vastly improve the type of games that we like, which are linear, well, not necessarily linear, but narrative driven games that focus on storytelling and whatnot. So we showed off Choreographer Cinema. Uh, we have Choreographer released in the Unity Asset Store already, but Cinema is kind of an expansion on that that's focused at third-party engines uh, and possibly like totally unique engines. But the intent there is that we provide a new audio system that allows developers to get music sounding like you would hear in the cinema, which is to say, music that responds and acts with gameplay. Um,
Yep.
and Eric, I'll let you talk about like why that hasn't been seen yet and what we're doing to address that.
Sure. Yeah. So, historically, what happens let's take a look at what happens in games right now, and then we can discuss why. If you're playing a game like Last of Us, um, Uncharted, God of War, Jedi Fallen Order, any game in that vein, um, typically what you see in recent years, in particular, when as things have gotten more and more cinematic, and this is true of older games as well, but it's very obvious in today's games. Um, you'll see that as the hero you are attacking, the big moments. Oh, another big one to call out was Shadow of War. What's the title of the full title of that?
Middle Earth, Shadow of
M-
Mordor.
Middle Earth, The Shadows of Mordor. Yes, thank you. Um, in all these games, as you're doing something epic, as it goes into like a this crazy hit mode, or it gets into a cut sequence where you've triggered some, for the lack of a better word, badass attack, uh, or finishing move, the music will cut down. It'll like kind of duck out, and you'll get like a silence with a sound effect, like a hit sound effect or something. It really focuses down on that. Now, that's very different from what happens in movies. When they do that type of thing in movies, it usually signifies a change in the what's happening in the music, or in the battle itself, like a shift in fortune for the hero, if it's whether it be good or bad. This just happens because in reality, the music is just doing what it's doing. You're in battle mode music, and when you trigger your big finishing hit is up to you. And the music system has no way of knowing that. It just is doing its own thing. So rather than try to like add in an extra layer for your hit or whatever, the music just ducks down and emphasizes the sound effect. Um, what Choreographer Cinema does is it allows it adds a channel to the game engine that allows the music system that historically has just been playing in its own world in the background to suddenly know what's happening in the game, as well. When you as a player hit an attack button, it opens up a channel of communication between the game and effectively you hitting that button and the audio system, and allowing both the game and the audio system, to coordinate. And what that means is that the music will change based on what you're doing as you attack. You can do Mickey Mouse style, every attack is going to land on a beat or build up to something. Or you can make it more specialized and have only big finishing moves that trigger kind of um, a swell of music that is built up to. Um, it's really going to be up to game developers how they want to use it. We are in our demo. We have a few examples of how it can be used, but we're hoping to in the future see more developers take that concept and really push it so that we can get that cinematic feel, that hero moment, being kind of not just buttressed with the action and the camera, but also the music that is already there for most of the rest of the battle, and now it can be there and play the big fanfare for when you do something really awesome.
So I'm going to summarize what you said because I think it was uh,
Very detailed.
very detailed. But
Yeah.
basically, modern games, the music has to be ducked down uh, in a way, because when you go into a combat arena or whatever it is,
Hmm.
um, that's not a cinematic piece. The game has no idea what you're going to do when you're going to do it. The only way that it could know that is if it gives you a cinema or an on rails portion of the game, and then it can predictably know what you're going to do, or will force you to do what they want you to do. Um, but in places like where you're brawling or whatever else, you'll if you pay attention to music, it gets stuck down, and it's because player agency makes it so the game engine has no idea what's going on. What, but it makes it so it's fundamentally not cinematic. If, as a game designer, you want to be like, I want to have a loud cymbal crash or symphonic hit that happens when you land a haymaker punch or the finishing move, or you manage to pull off like a cool contextual thing that happens. All those things are impossible, and we don't get the cinematic effect. That's what we're going to be. That's what we want to improve upon. And with choreographer cinema, we've developed a system that allows the music to be feeding back into the game, and it enables experiences that have like essentially emergent or like dynamic recompositioning of the music to some degree, that allows things for like a haymaker punch that's landed to land with a cymbal crash, and not only just in time, but like complementing what's happening in the music. So we're hoping to see like truly cinematic sounding games that just weren't
Yeah.
possible before.
Yep. We
Uh,
want that John Williams style, fight sequences to actually feel like John Williams style fight sequences.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say, why is this important? Like, why is what we're trying to introduce to game audio important for games in general?
I think it just builds on the emotional connection between the character and the story that's happening. I mean, what we've talked about right now is the very basic stuff of playing out the battle and having the attacks land and do certain, be in time. That is more of the technical side of things. What it opens up, I think, further down the road, once developers kind of come to grips with what this technology means and what they can do with it, is for me really opening up the emotional impact of what combat can mean to a player, of what action in a game, not just combat, but any action can mean to a player. And music typically sets an emotional tone for a scene or a sequence, and this would allow the music composer to really go in and hammer on the point of a scene where, in The Last of Us 2, where Ellie and uh you're playing as Abby and fighting Ellie, and you have to spoiler alert,
Yeah.
and whoops, and um you're basically fighting a character who you've been playing for a long time, and you understand their motivations. It can be very difficult. And now, if that music was able to tell that same story with you, and that each punch that lands from one to the other could be just this emphasized on with the right type of music to really like hammer home the absurdity and the sadness of what you're doing. Another game that came to my mind was Shadow of the Colossus, where what you're doing throughout the game is essentially destroying gods. Again, spoiler alert. Um, but it, those, and like you're basically weakening yourself as you go through that game. And as those hits land, and you would work through that type of experience, the music could really help in telling that story on a moment to moment basis, and really you kind of raise up the level of games as storytelling pieces to the same tier or beyond, as to what movies offer right now.
Yeah.
That's my take. Do
Well, I mean, the
you have
only thing
thoughts?
I would add to that is that within the game industry, we've continually been able to elevate graphics. It's just one
Yeah.
of those things that is typically seen as more important, and it's been able to elevate year after year, even within generations. There's huge advancements in what can be done graphically. Audio does not get the same treatment, and it's not often that we see like a seismic shift in the way we're able to do audio, and this I think is key to elevating the visual experience you're getting by elevating the aural experience that you're getting by, like you were saying, is allowing composers and artists to um, create scores and compositions that are built to complement the action that's going to be happening on the screen for a given space or area, which I think will be hugely important to telling the story and bringing the art closer, if not surpassing what is done in cinema.
Right.
So I guess the last question is what kind of experiences do you think it's going to be able to enable?
That's a hard one. I mean, I think it's more about what I hope developers will take advantage of it to create. And I think it'll be more emotional combat scenes. I think it'll be more fulfilling combat scenes. I think the experience that I think it will be able to open up at the very beginning, at the very least, right? Not even talking about the touch of direction that is needed in order to get like a touching moment out of an action sequence, but even just like a wow, that was awesome. That feeling of everything that you're doing feeling choreographed with the music as though you were playing in a movie and it was all intentional. That I think is the big initial win that I'm hoping to see going forward, is that like the music will complement your gameplay going forward, and you're effectively the actions that you propose with your inputs will drive the progression of the music. It'll be each playthrough is going to be unique and exciting in its own.
My hope here is that um,
Yeah.
we've been kind of used to a way games function for the better part of 10 years, if not longer. And that is to say that in order for games to create really impactful moments, we've been relying on scripted events. Basically, you lock yourself in a
Yeah.
room and it turns into like like a Disney park ride where it's like, okay, you're stuck in doing what they're asking you to do, and they may even constrain the way you're able to look in spaces to have stuff happen in an exciting way. And that's all well and good. It's been effective, but what it does is it takes away the what makes games, right? It removes some agency from the gamer player
Yep.
in favor of scripted events that you just kind of experience as they happen. The extreme version of this is just pure cinematic, and
Heavy Rain.
yeah, like Heavy Rain, which is really it's entirely a scripted game.
Yep.
So if we think about like the way those things function is like lock yourself in a room, or the game locks you in a room. It may constrain the way you're looking, and basically it will set off a chain of events where it's like waiting for you to do something, interact with an object or whatever else, or look in a specific area, and then a set of events will happen. The music will change, effects will happen, and some thing is there to mess with you or whatever it is. Um, I think with this, when audio can kind of drive things that happen, you no longer have to go. We're scripting an event by locking your movements and stuff like that. Like you could imagine, say, like a horror game where you're walking around a haunted house, where the shift in music is what triggers the change of events. So opposed to saying like, okay, you're going to
Yeah.
be locked in a room, it's going, well, with this swell score, depending on where you're looking at, this object will react to it, and this lightning bolt will strike, which will like set off a roll of thunder and all this other stuff. And if you're near a window, you'll see lightning, etc. I think the real hopeful thing with this is that as designers start to experiment with what it can do, if music is allowed to drive certain aspects of the game, you can start pulling back from scripted events and find a better medium that is saying we still allow agency, uh, but we can still get these cinematic, uh, you know, contained pieces that work without robbing you of your ability to do anything.